Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back for the first time in a long time. I've finally gotten back to the Honkai Impact 3rd animations. Today we have Lament of the Fallen. It's been over a month. I miss doing these, and I want to do them again. For those who may be confused by my appearance, yes, this is a microphone on my face. That's just a new setup idea I'm trying. I have lav mics that work really well, surprisingly, with clipping to my wide rim, and I'm like, you know what? Let's try doing that. I know it won't sound as good as my usual main microphone does. This thing will obviously sound way better. But what it will allow me to do is move around freely, go between this setup and my drawing setup without having to change microphones and locations, because this does not reach over there, and there's no way to make it do so. So I'm thinking it's a better option, and it should help with the plosive issues that my old face mic used to have. Even though I do like the quality of that mic, it was constantly annoying to have to fight with it whenever I would say anything with a P or an L or an M, or really any hard consonant sound, an S especially. So it just, this might end up working a little bit better despite the audio differences, and I hope nobody hates it. So without further ado, let's go. Jeez, okay.
我是不会让你走的。
我
就凭你这奄奄一息的样子，就凭我的拳头。
You missed. Alright. Man, the choreography. It's really clean in this one. I'm already liking the movements and everything. They put a lot of time into setting this up. The fights are usually pretty good, but this, like, the hand-to-hand is very notable in this one. Yeesh, oof, okay. Yikes. Ooh. She's strong, okay. Ah, ooh, that was a nice use of the physics. I'm gonna have to go back to that one. Ooh. Somebody's angry. Ah. Oh, she angry.
提亚娜，你一直都是这样，明明已经遍体鳞伤，却还要勉强自己笑着。你拯救了我，拯救了大家，却要独自去承担所有的痛苦，甚至付出生命。牙医，这是我的使命，拯救世界什么的大道理，我也懂，牙医。但是你要我如何忍受这一切？牙医，不要！我只知道，我心里比起这个世界。
I'm conflicted because there's like cool stuff in this sequence, but then some stuff I'm like, meh. We'll get there, I'll explain myself, no worries. Right now we got a song to get to. I'm gonna have to try and avoid rocking out to the song. I'm here for the animation. It's been a while. I've still got to get my mind back into the animation space. Impact frames. You know we're gonna talk about those. Gotta talk about the impact frames when we're talking about impact.
那一天，你向我伸出了手。从你抓住我的那一刻起，我的命运就被你改变了。你是我生命中最重要的人。
Then why you fighting? I don't know the character relationships here. I'm sure there's a
如果
reason.
拯救你是一种罪，那就让我来当这个罪人。
So I just realized the shoes she's wearing. Yeesh. You gotta break her ankles on those heels. Whew. Not even heels, are there? They're basically stilts. Bold choice. So the first thing I want to talk about is actually something really easy to talk about and something that everybody who's probably here is pretty familiar with. The anime mouth. So this mouth right here, this is not a new thing for this at all. This entire animation series of these Honkai things have had these mouths. What's interesting about this one specifically is how exaggerated it is and how much the jaw is shifted over. Again, this isn't too uncommon, but it's a really good close-up example of it, and I want you all to pay attention real quick to just how aggressive it is, because this is nuts. And the fact that we get it so close up is really cool, because usually it doesn't get this exaggerated that close. This is a pretty consistent design choice thing for all anime designs and all design styles of that sort, where they have the mouth on the side with like this silhouette of lips that happens. That's normal. It's totally fine, and it works really well for what it is. What's kind of interesting with how exaggerated this one is how much jaw you get to see on the inside. All of that line, even the top here, it's like you're seeing so much of that mouth. It might as well be like right here. Like, this is a Jujutsu Kaisen level side mouth that we got going on. We got some Sukuna mouth going on here. But I don't want that to sound like it's a bad thing, because it works extremely well to sell this emotion. And that's the point. That's why things like this get done. You can show more emotion in the mouth this way if you have the ability to kind of slide it over to the side. This looks goofy as all in an actual model. If you've ever seen that done in a 3D model, having the mouth on the side like that looks goofy as all hell. But it is so effective at being able to show that emotion and get it across, especially when doing something so volatile like having this much pain in the face. You're showing a lot of that, so having that mouth is very visible, albeit usually the mouths are closed. So having the mouth open like this is a very bold choice, and one I must appreciate, because that's a lot of jaw to show and a lot of inner mouth to show for an angle like that for that long. I really love this spot here too, just with her rolling with that punch, quite literally just barely nicking the cheek and continuing on with that motion in order to grab her wrist and turn it around on her. That's a really cool thing. I don't think I've ever seen that specific shot done. I don't really see many times where they show it that close to hitting and just in the nick of time removing yourself from that space and being able to reverse it. Usually you get something like it is a contact shot and then they kind of react and then grab, or they miss completely by like well off of a gap of the hand, and you don't really get that level of close to it. So I think that's really neat how close they had this shot just for this one shot. Really sells how close they are in power and speed. That's very appreciated. Of course, we're getting more of this amazing fight choreography here. I am not a fight choreographer. I just really like to appreciate things that are done here. I don't have any particular spot I want to talk about in this, but as one comes, as I'm going through, I'm going to mention things that I like. So this one is just a lot of good angles, a lot of top wide angles as well from the side and ones like this where you're able to see the action. This is something that is a problem in Hollywood films, especially more modern ones. They do not show enough action in wide shots, and albeit there are definitely fringe examples of that happening, and it's starting to happen a little bit more often as this opinion I'm sharing is starting to become popular again. Fast cuts do not sell fights. Wide shots with a lot of action sell fights. That's why fighting in earlier, like 80s to the early 2000s, basically, that entire window of like action sequences in films, Hollywood and worldwide, sold so well. You know, that's the reason Jackie Chan got how big as he is, right? It's that sort of thing. You don't want to minimize those shots by cutting them apart and making it hard to follow, because then it loses all impact. That is a directorial choice that I must appreciate, and obviously is a lot easier to get away with in animation. You're not fighting the physical restrictions of an actor or anything else like that, and you can put the camera wherever you want to make it work, as well as make them do whatever ridiculous movements you want. But the point remains, this is a very good way to do fights, and especially in stuff that focuses more heavily on this hand-to-hand style combat, really does shine. So it's very nice to see it here. So in this moment right here, we actually have a good example of the background and the foreground characters moving entirely separately. I say characters for the background, but I mean like the background and the characters moving separately. This you can see just going through frame by frame how the background moves on ones and the characters move on twos. That meaning the background is moving one frame at a time. For every frame, you see the background move a little bit and the characters moving every 2 frames. That is purely to allow the movement to feel a little bit more smooth. You feel that camera sweep happen a little bit more smoothly, but the characters themselves, and this is just a standard, being animated on 2s to save time in the animation process, as well as keeping them paced. The body can move really at any FPS that you want them to move at in animation, and 2s for most bulk animation seems to be this kind of little golden range of getting the best of both worlds there, so you don't have to fight between it. There are, of course, exceptions all over the place for both of those, but in this context, having the background and the characters themselves moving at 2 different frame rates does allow that movement to feel a little bit more smooth and connected. The characters feel connected to themselves, separated from the background, and the background in turn feeling smoother than the characters really helps sell that rotation to bring the whole shot together. Only stopping here to appreciate the one thing I love the most about these Honkai animations are that the expressions they have are brilliant. Right here, being hit, having that, I think sweat could be rain, just spotting off with the kick and just selling that extra bit of impact alongside the facial expression, just kind of right up in the jaw. You see the whole face condense and just crack inward, as well as the jaw here. I didn't really notice this till just now, but kind of having an underbite as she gets hit, like the jaw was pushed out in front. That's a really small detail. I say that a lot. It's a small detail they didn't have to add, but they did. This sells this hit that much more. Even if it's so quick like this, having those little details can really make it feel that much harder and that much heavier. So when they do things like this, you gotta give them praise for it, because a lot of the time you wouldn't see this done, and I love it when they do that. They really care about their animations. So this is a choreography part I actually do want to talk about, because I thought that this movement was really cool during the video itself. Her going down to just give this thing the elbow right on the kneecap. First of all, ow! What a way to decommission somebody. Second of all, the other character here realizing she's about to do that and rotating her whole body, not only to deliver the kick off of that momentum and just like flick around and smack her in the head like she's planning on doing, but to also give her the back of the knee here. So even if it did land, it would just push the knee down, and then it allows her to get free. It's a really cool little bit of choreography that I gotta appreciate. That's a cool mental process to have. Hey, she caught my leg, I need to rotate and get out of there, and while I'm doing so, might as well deliver another hit. And here's that hit that I really wanted to talk about that I thought was just such a good impact earlier. The force on this hit is dummy thick. She's just sitting here. Right now, her hand about there, right? You go forward a few frames, you're seeing it like really set, and then she's here. That is so much further than she started. She's all the way over here now. That's nuts! That's so much power! You realize how much of that went through her gut? Owie! Big ouchie, oof, big. I don't have any other words for that. That was just a sick movement. The amount of power by switching from this depth to that depth in one frame is so immense. What a good show of power. And absolutely painful to the eye, in a good way, not a bad way. So here's an impact frame I missed the first time. I just saw it now, and I think that's really cool. Sometimes these impacts go by so fast, not even I see them, even though I usually do, and that's a good thing. Not seeing impacts just means that you felt the energy that they sent, and that's their main goal, is to make you feel that shift. So I think that's really neat that I didn't even notice earlier, but here we are. So here we are in the set of reaction faces that I honestly did not like watching the first time. I think in all of the glory that has been the Honkai Impact facial animations and their reaction faces and the sheer emotion that goes into them, these felt pretty weak. And it's just this set of shots of her reacting. There's a lot of flatness going on in the face here. And it's not just because her nose pulled a Michael Jackson. It's mostly because, like, the actual eyes don't really do much. Like, there's not really any curve going on here. They're pretty straight. The mouth looks very, like, deadpan. There's not, like, any sort of stretch. A lot of that does have to do with the distance that these are happening at. There's not that ability to get really close to the face in these contexts, so it feels a little weak. But as such, it also results in these, like, head turns where they're, like, not quite looking anywhere else, and they just kind of go dead to the eye. Like, there's nothing over in any of the direction wherever her eyes are landing, because you can't tell. There's no, like, familiarity, there's no lock, there's no item for her eyes to actually settle on, because we've already seen that she isn't looking there initially. So she's just kind of, like, detaching, which in some contexts would work entirely if you're having like a psychosis or a break like that. But in this context, with her reacting to somebody saying something or doing something, that isn't really the emotion you should be going for. So having that detachment where they're not focusing on anything just isn't it. It's not it. It ain't it, Chief. It's unfortunate because they usually do these very well, but there's always going to be times where they don't quite get it, and that was one of them. And it doesn't really help the whole last set of reactions when this shot follows it up. Again, completely different distance, but you see what I mean, don't you? It's not that there's no emotion to be shown. It was just that it was an unfortunate distance, and they should have honestly picked a different selection of shots to show her reactions instead of what they did. This one is so much more impactful. You get right up close and personal, and you feel that anger and that resentment, and that's great. I don't know what they were trying to do with the last shot. It was very confusing. This is just one of the coolest little mini shots that you could have expected out of this sort of thing. The zoom coming off right as she gets super close to the camera is just chef's kiss. I love that because it's just kind of going in and out up until that point, just to give you the time to focus on her. And again, those eyes are the same as last time, full of determination, anger, and wanting to get her goal achieved. And here we are at the impact frames. As I promise, every single time I see impact frames, I gotta stop on them because I love them. They're so attractive. Look at these. Look at these, how pretty they are. All of the energy being spent in the proper directions. You gotta love that giant focus on finding that one spot that they're aiming at, and all of them coming together to find said item that they're aiming at. I love impact frames. They're so sick. And it's actually pretty uncommon to see this, but there's like the usual a bunch, you know, like of impact frames back to back, the black and white alternative shift here, but then having like multiple of like the same couple like this, like there's a few here, just these two are the same one slightly shifted. And then the one that follows it is just a slightly different variation of that. That's really strange, having like 3 or 4 frames of just impact frames that are like the same basic image instead of changing to another extreme or something like that. That's a really, really weird one, but I like it. This shot itself, I don't need to play it or anything. It's just gorgeous. It's beautiful looking. I don't really think that there's anything particularly notable about why this one is gorgeous aside from the volumetric lighting on it. Like, you see the shadow that she's being cast through all of that density in the air, all of that humidity and moisture that would be having those light breaks, creating these god rays coming through the sky, but these clouds just look gorgeous. Having this like section up here in general, having that gap kind of does fall on the rule of thirds graph. So that's probably there on purpose just to get things like lined up and looking balanced on the screen, as well as her, of course, landing dead center of the frame to show her focus. It's really just the usual stuff you'd expect out of separating the screen into thirds and chunks to be able to cross those lines for focal points. But like, I just think it's pretty. Can I think something's pretty without having to have much of an explanation? Why not, right? And there's only one other thing I really want to talk about, and it's just this right here. Protect this. Just protect that smile. That's it. That's the video. But that's pretty much it, like I said. So thank you all so very much for watching. I will definitely be getting back into doing these a little bit more regularly. Sorry I had to take so long off of doing them. Getting the room done was definitely a high priority. And now that we're there, I can be here and do these sorts of things. If this microphone setup sounds good to you guys, or it's good enough, let me know. If you want me to change back to the old one, I'm okay with either or. I just thought this would be easier to set up. So, you know, whatever you guys want is what I'll roll with. But other than that, thank you all so very much for watching, and if you want to support me and follow me and all that, you know how to do that, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye!